we will call this work session to order. Thank you. And better if you'd like to do roll call. Actually, hang on. We'll give these two gals a minute to get.
Work sessions, we can have you guys do a sound off.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Everybody's doing it now.
Yeah, I know.
Just checking. Right. I didn't do it, but you know there's not a side seat.
All right, now we'll really get this meeting started with roll call, and if we could start with you, Trustee Valentine.
Present.
Go for it.
Check. Here.
Mayor Smith.
Trustee Schwartz. Trustee Hunter. Trustee Hack.
Okay. So we are all pretty much here. We lost Doctor, he's having some oral surgery. Yes, I think he would rather be here. So with that, this is strictly a work session, so it's open for questions amongst the trustees, and audience can ask questions as well. Hang on one second. We'll start with the presentation that the Deliverances had put together.
Actually, if I may, before that,
Sure.
I just have disclosure. I just need to let everybody know that I'm the engineer for the Deliverances. And so I have not worked on this project in particular, but I do work with them regularly. So I will recuse myself from any future votes. But yeah, I just wanted to disclose where it started.
Okay, and this is a work session, so there are no motions and no votes. This is strictly information sharing, back and forth, open questions. Staff can ask questions, so we'll just let you all, thanks for that. We'll let you all kick it off, and then we'll just take it from there.
Great, thank you very much. We really appreciate the opportunity to address the town. We're very excited about this proposal. First of all, we'd like to thank Mayor Page, the esteemed trustees, the town administration, led by Stephen Wynn, the staff for hearing our proposal. We really appreciate your time. We are joined by several people, Julia Jacobson, Libby Collins from the Colorado West Land Trust. Thank you for coming here. My 91-year-old mother, who can share a perspective or two about the history of Paonia. And of course, I have to say that I do wish her memory was a little bit forgiving and would slip a little bit because she remembers about everything that I've done incorrectly. Myself, I'm the CEO of the Carl Lee Berg Education Foundation. My wife, Lauren, the CFO. Jan, you can say hi, the COO. Did Joel make it? Joel should be here. Glansberg, he's our regenerative development advisor, and numerous family members that have traveled afar with hopes our family legacy can become a part of something bigger, which namely would be the Paonia's legacy. So here we go, a brief history. I think this is a very important slide, and I'll spend a little bit of time on it, hopefully not too much time, but Carl Berg pioneered the land from on McClure Pass over 125 years ago. My grandfather, his son, Paul Berg, purchased the farm just outside of Paonia, located on Matthews in 1943. Because my grandmother, they had property up on the North Fork just below the Paonia Dam. She was tired of the buggy ride into town, so she convinced my grandfather to move to Paonia and buy the farm, which town that she very much fell in love with. The farm has been under continuous direct family ownership since. I grew up spending the summers on the farm. My mom and her cousins all came to the farm when they were kids. These summers were very important to us. We bound as family. We understood a little bit about agriculture, and my wife and I, Lauren here, purchased the farm in 2004 after the passing of my beloved grandmother, and with the intent to preserve its the working farm for the family and friends to experience. Along those lines, we placed our farm in a conservation easement. The ranch house and multiple buildings built in the probably around 1901 to 1905 is on the National Historic Register. But we had one big problem, and this is why we're here, is that Lauren and I struggled ever since we bought the farm and have put countless dollars into the farm. We had one main problem is that how do we preserve the farm into perpetuity? And as one of very important family member pointed out, is this something that Lauren and I want to do if this can only last for our lifetimes? And we struggled with this for many, many, many years. It turned out that when it came time, it occurred to Lauren and I that the farm and what it could offer was much bigger than our family. And we could touch so many others by allowing the Paonia community inside our circle, okay, inside of what the farm gave us when we were children. And that became very, very important to us. So when Carly Berg, my mom's first cousin, my second cousin, he's a Silicon Valley developer, venture capitalist who spent countless years. In fact, his single interview with Forbes, he mentioned Paonia because that's what he remembers from his childhood. He caught wind of what we were trying to do and became a consistent and substantial supporter to this endeavor. And here we are. Since then, the operation has expanded into a mercantile, several outbuildings, trying to add additional structures for the farm. In 2023, the Carly Berg Education Foundation was formed. And as you can see in the picture, Lauren, do you have that pointer by any chance? We forgot. Oh, is this a little button? Oh, okay. So the family's grown a little bit, okay? Here we are in 1919 and in 220. So this is really, I think where I'm standing is this is really a potential gift from our family to the town because of what we had experienced. There we go. So the land and the orchards, the foundation's purpose is really to bring forward Paonia's rich history. It's also intended to preserve the historical farming operation of Paonia for future generations to experience and to learn from. Lauren? Big
Okay, I just want to introduce Joel Glansberg. Joel has been working with us as a consultant. He's got a lot of experience in these types of endeavors, and we really appreciated the input he's provided us so far. So thank you for being here, Joel. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I don't want to repeat too much of what Andrew has said, but we did. Some of our biggest news is that we did receive our final approval to be a 501c3 nonprofit. So it is firmly established. We're good to go. And really what, as it was mentioned, that we are looking at the assets that we have and the farm and the mercantile and the land, mineral collections, all sorts of things, the tractor display. We wanted to create this educational facility for visitors, for the townspeople, to draw people in, make it a venue here to attract money into the valley for tourism, local businesses, spurring them on. But we also really want to work with the current organizations in the town. There are several things we'd love to do. Well, they're already here. We already have a Paonia Museum. So we don't really want to recreate a historical museum in that sense. We've got a wonderful museum in Montrose honoring the Ute Indians. Although we really very much want to acknowledge the indigenous peoples in this valley, we'll also be working to refer people down to that avenue as well. We've got a number of organizations in this town that are just amazing. Even the land trust people, the Western Colorado, the Conservation Center. There's all sorts of organizations that we feel that we can work with and bring some synergy with what we want to see into organizations that already exist here. So again, as Andrew had mentioned, we want this to be a fun, interactive, immersive experience on many levels, all the way from farming, from the tractor display, but even exhibits that we might have in the museum, from minerals to a lot of other ideas that we've had, things to do with, we're now a dark skies community. What can we do with that? So we have lots of ideas of what we want to do. One thing we really wanted to touch on when we're so grateful for the land trust here is our farm, the two main parcels that are now, which you will see in a later slide, are part of the Carl Ebert Education Foundation, are in a conservation easement, which means those easements can never be developed commercially. They're in perpetuity protected. And so these lands are, very vital for what the work they are doing, the work that we want to do to promote conservation, and also other resources to protect in our community. So what we really, obviously, the Carl Ebert Education Foundation, well, education is one of our middle names. That's what we want to focus on. Part of that being in the Natural History Museum, as we said, venues for Indigenous people. We would love to have nods to our current mining industry. Mining is absolute part of our heritage here in the North Fork Valley. Still have one amazing operating mine. There's certainly our fruit production. There's a lot of things that we feel, even on our farm, with the automation that we've talked about, farms in old school farming, the way it was 120 years ago. Well, there's new school farming too. We have a lot of microjet irrigation systems. We've got fans. We've got weather data. We've got things now that are very interesting and educational that people can get a lot of, if we can pursue that as an educational opportunity for the agricultural aspect as well. One thing that we are so grateful that Julia and Libby are here for is we were able to take them down into our 10-acre parcel on the bottom land. Is another educational avenue that we would love to explore as like a walking path or arboretum down through that bottom land. It does go right along the river. It would be a beautiful way to get people out walking about, having self-guided tours for local plant life, things like that. So we got a lot of ideas. I think we have a lot of resources. The one thing that, as Andrew and I have delved into this endeavor, there is so much talent and diversity right here in Paonia. The people we've met, the people we've talked to, the expertise they have, it's absolutely amazing where we feel the business relationships that we can form and exploit in this process. So we're very excited about that. To continue with that, one thing, my mother-in-law, Betty Mueller, she started collecting gems and minerals back in the 60s. Her collection is more than impressive, and it belongs in a museum. Her late sister, Alice Van Vliet, also has an amazing collection. We purchased the late Merle Lund's collection. Andrew and I have some specimens ourselves, and we have felt that it deserves to be seen. We have geologists in the family who are certainly capable of curating and rotating those minerals to the museum. So that is part of what I always see as part of this museum. It's not just a museum that you might think of when you hear that word of a bunch of old artifacts, but we want it to be changing and living and growing and interactive and immersive and high tech and a lot of things to be able to appeal to a wide venue of audiences. We want to appeal to the children, to elderly. We'd love to get school bus tours coming up, seeing part of the displays we have. As I mentioned, we wanted to hit the agricultural with the tractors, living farm aspect. Wanted to hit the indigenous peoples. One thing what we're so excited about is the Dark Skies Initiative. And I think that's just because we have so much interest in our family. We've got some budding astronomers, and we are so delighted that this might give us a venue of even putting a telescope up. So even 1 or 2 nights a week, given the right circumstances, we might be able to exploit that, have a couple of evening sessions where people can actually come up, take a look at Jupiter, or take a look at Saturn, and actually be able to enjoy our dark sky designation. Other things that we've thought of as educational working space for classrooms, jewelry making, the ideas are endless of what we've thought about. What we really have the problem is we've got all these wonderful ideas, and what we want to do more than anything is manage this appropriately, manage the scale, manage the scope, know what we're doing, know the appropriate funding that we have, and plan this in a modular, small way so that we can expand as we have time and resources. But get the foundation right. We want to do this the right way, get the right people, get the right ideas. So that's where we're starting. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Andrew.
So as part of, Lauren and I didn't study in college, the incredible volume of education that people go through that run museums. And so as part of that, we figured that what we would do is start to reach out to some museums across the country. One we fell in love with, Lauren and I are from Tucson, is this Arizona Desert Museum. We have been fortunate enough at every visit to talk to directors of these museums. They're incredibly helpful, transparent, and open, specifically about what mistakes they've made, what people get excited about, and will hopefully help us formulate a plan that we can bring forward, interacting with the community. Because one big piece of advice here was that we can't do what we think is cool. We've got to reach out to the community and see what they think is cool. Okay, and that will generate phenomenal momentum in this arena. Interestingly, the Arizona Desert Museum has a wide range of ages that they appeal to. They have an annual pass, and most of those are elderly people that come and walk their property. They get up early, they go for a walk, the animals are out, the birds are out. So having a nature walk is huge to them. Then they have other things that appeal to children, that an exhibit where the kids get in a sand pile and excavate dinosaur bones or, thereof, and things like that. They've got stingray dance, they've got all sorts of different things. But it's really about the scope. And other museums, Thanksgiving Point, they have a enormous set of 5 museums in one area, talking to them about what are their most popular museums? Is it the living farm? Is it their natural history museum? Is it their children's museum? We visited the Discovery Center in Boise that really centered on children. Some smaller museums, the Idaho State Museum for Geology was impressive because we wanted to roll in rocks and minerals, and how on earth do you turn rocks and minerals into an interactive venue? It's difficult, and They did it, and they did it in some imaginative ways. Then we went for the big guys. We got back from Chicago a few weeks ago. The Griffin Museum used to be the Museum of Science and Industry. I don't know if anybody's been there. They have a full-size German submarine there underground. It's phenomenal. And the people we talked to there, they were phenomenally open about what we need to do to survive. And then we wandered into the Field Museum, which is more of a static museum. And what is it that is exciting there? And then my favorite, of course, the Adler Planetarium, which blew me away. But I think the idea here is that there's a scope here, and we need to figure out what that scope is so we can bring it forward to the community and say, hey, this is what we found. This is what we found seems to work. Certainly the demographics of Chicago is very different from Paonia, but I'm sure there are common interests there. You know, kids are kids. Kids love dinosaurs. Can't get around that. So some of the things we learned. There we go. Oh, rats. Now, of course, I've cued. There we go. Key takeaways. So most of the museums, there are themes, interactive displays. There's only so much you can have in a case that people wander by, they see it once, and then they've seen it. They're not going to come back. So interactive displays are very important. Rotating exhibits, huge. Every so often, you've got to bring in a big exhibit in because people don't want to come back and see the same exhibit over and over again. They're between the Field Museum and the Griffin Museum, there was phenomenal variety of exhibits for different age groups. I will say that one of my favorite, which was interesting, one of the first exhibits in 1932 that they put in the Griffin Museum was a coal mining experience. Phenomenal. In fact, Matthew and his lovely wife, Neil, we took there, and it was a great interactive way. It showed how the mines developed over time. And as you know, mining has been a very important part of Paonia's history. In fact, my grandfather was killed in mine up the way. So opportunities for classroom visits were enormous, but really the advice is, look, we need to see what's out there. We need to work with the community to see where we want to start. We start small and we ramp up as funding permits. Grant money is available. We talked a lot about how these museums are funded. You know, how much of an endowment do you need? How much do you need to charge the community? And interestingly, in the Griffin Museum, one of the biggest negative parts of their evaluations is that they charge within the museum. So they'll charge you to get in the museum, but if you want to see the coal mining exhibit, that costs an extra $12. So people didn't like that very much. So they said they're trying to cut that back. Their goal is, I think, 2 million visitors. This year, they're about 1.25 now. Yeah, so, you know, that we have to keep in our minds. You know, we want to make this affordable for people. Generating local jobs is very important, and again, focusing on visitor interests. So this is an important slide because I think the town and its community need to understand, you know, why now? Okay, why now? We didn't want to start prematurely. Number one, we wanted to get funding first. If we have funding, we can do things. right? So we want to, this is very important. So we have continued reliable funding now committed to date. Continued private funding will happen. We're turned on by a number of our museum visits. We've got a number of connection of grant writers to explore that possibility. And so we feel now we have long-term viability and we have enough to get us off the ground. Lauren and I, as she had mentioned 3 weeks ago, donated 20 acres of our farm into the foundation. So Lauren and I and the family here is all in. We're into this thing. We don't own our farm anymore, the foundation does. As Lauren had mentioned, we have extensive, mineral collections, and Dennis Nadel is committed a series of tractors that will represent history through time, and they really tell a very fascinating story, actually. Why in this time frame did they have steel wheels, and why did they use kerosene and diesel? And it's amazing. So there we go. So site location. So in looking at the possibilities, we feel the best location for the museum is the current Twins Lake parcel on Sammy Wade Road, obviously currently owned by the town of Paonia. It offers, critical leverage for, we, as you'll see, own property on all three sides. It's adjacent to our preserved parcel that would be ideal to get the community down into that 10 acres. We would absolutely love to explore the possibility of putting an arboretum in that would be dimensional, I think. We talked to our conservation people about trying to highlight in that 10-acre area, indigenous plants that have been here, and I don't think anybody's touched that parcel for probably 80 years. So we've got a pretty good start there. Next. There we go. In addition, the Twin Lake parcel, as you know, offers great location. It's on the main artery into town. It's probably a 4-minute walk to Main Street. There can be overflow parking that we can, synergize with. So it really provides easy access to downtown and to support other local businesses. Unlike Big B's that have to bus people in and out, we're right there. On the realistic side, it was a sewage treatment plant, and which may complement or complicate development for residential and commercial buildings that will require some further investigation. So this slide basically shows here Twin Lakes parcel. This is our basically undeveloped 10 acres of bottomland. There would be phenomenal access here, room for an arboretum, potential arboretum. This is now in the foundation. Our orchards for our living farm is right here. Our pump house, all of this lives in this area here. Again, easy access. And then these are potential parcels that will become part of the foundation at some point in time. Okay. So with that said, we would, I think in summary, we have, as far as our perspective, we have a windfall of opportunity here. And we need some help from the town to get to that point, which is primarily allowing us to purchase a parcel. We're not asking for any funds from the town. So we think it would be low impact, but we, as I had described earlier, that it's very important to us that we go outside of ourselves, our family's needs or our family's wants here, and interact with the community, that we could bring something that would really highlight Paonia, and most important to me, something that this group of people will see as a very positive thing and be proud of. Again, we'd like to thank you for your time, and Joel, I don't know if you have any comments, or Jan, before I sign off, any comments?
Could you leave the slides up? Because it might be good for questions to be.
You bet.
I have a question about one of the slides, so it'd be good. Thank you. Sorry.
Please. I guess the request is,
Can you come up to the podium, please? That way everyone can hear you, and then you are recorded better. Thank you.
thought it was an informal meeting.
We have little bits and pieces.
I just wanted to make it really clear that the question is, what is the interest of the town? What is the possibility of purchasing that piece of property to enable the development of this museum, so that this whole effort could help to continue to support the agricultural character of the town?
Jan, do you have any comments? I think you're in space somewhere.
Yeah, thank you for letting me be included here. I'm up here in Boise, Idaho. So I'm just kind of joining remotely. My connection is that my sister is Lauren Thliveris, and so I've worked with her for a number of years down at the farm. It's been a kind of a passion of mine, so I've been very happy to be involved with this. I think I just wanted to reiterate the fact that our intent in this effort is to be a benefit to the town and not a drain in any way. We're trying to achieve a very significant and continuing source of funding so that it is not an effort that starts for a year and then folds. This is something that can be an ongoing resource that we can really develop into an operation that can actually draw people in and help both the education of all the kids in the North Fork, as well as start to bring in tourism and enrich the entire community. So even though I'm not there, I feel a strong connection to the community, and I hope we can make that happen.
Thank you. With that, I have just one question, and that's kind of why I wanted this map left up. Can you point out the parcels that have already been put into
Yeah,
conservation
parcels.
easement? Both of those. Okay, and it's about 20 acres total.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ish.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the trustees?
Yeah, just one quick question. It's, if you bought, if you're preaching to the choir, by the way. I'm a farmer from Iowa, and I've had problems with wetlands. And what would happen if all of a sudden you could, if we sold you the land and you couldn't build on it? What happens then?
Well, I think what we would do as part of that process is that we would have to pay for an environmental study just to make sure we can build on that parcel. Okay.
Okay, what I ended up doing was making a lake out of it, but that's.
I see. Okay.
Another state, another world.
Yeah, reading a little bit of the Cora report, there are ways, I believe, to build on it, but there were only 2 sites looked at, and we'd have to very carefully map out, with the town's help, where we would think we would position the building, and we would have to be extensive about depths of footers and making sure, my father, my mother married an architect, so I know a little bit, probably enough to get me in trouble, but I always have loose.
So right now, the wetlands rules are in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, exactly.
You follow right through.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So it's a very good question.
And I don't know the answer, I just.
We don't exactly know yet, but it'll be part of our due diligence.
As long as you're aware of it.
Yeah.
I guess.
Go ahead,
Oh.
go ahead.
Okay, so I do have a number of questions.
Sure.
I'll just ask
That's
a
what it's all
couple
about.
and then allow other people. What would be your timeline for development?
So realistically, if we could get something started in 26, it would be amazing. However, there's a lot of groundwork and we want to move very slowly and carefully to make sure whatever we design and want to build, that it's good with the group, it's good with the community, it's where we need to start. We need to get a feel for what, the farm is the farm. It'll be a living farm. We're committed there. It's really about the museum. And so we were cautioned to spend time visiting, going back to the community and saying, look, these are amazing things that happen, that we found work. These are things that don't work. We're very open that way. So, yeah, go
One thing
ahead.
I'd like to add on that is a lot of it also depends on the feedback from you as this process of purchasing.
Hang on one second. Let me ask, I've been making people come to the podium so that everybody could hear and it would record. Do we need to continue to do that to make this a better recording instead of being here? Well, I'm asking you technically. Can people hear and will people be able to hear when they watch this on Zoom later?
As long as we don't have multiple people talking at a time, it should be okay.
I
Okay.
can
We
tell you
can
that
come up.
from
Oh, go ahead.
Boise, it's very clear. From, I could, on the Zoom link, I can hear very well when people speak from their seats as well as the podium.
Well, and what I'm concerned about is when it's not live, when it's on YouTube. I don't know if we lose anything. Should it be the same quality? Okay. All right, just speak loud and we'll go with that. Thanks.
So a lot of it is really what this meeting is all about, is making this request, because at least, Mayor Smith, and we talked to you before too, this is some uncharted territory, at least for us. What is the process? Even if you are amenable to selling us the property, what does that look like? How long does that take? What are the contingencies on that property? As we said, Trustee Hack, as far as making sure we can build on it, making sure the environmental studies look good. So whatever time that takes, that's why we're saying, yes, 26 would be amazing if we can accomplish that and actually get a design of at least a preliminary building of what we're looking at.
The good news is that we're not limited by funds. We're not waiting on grants. We're not waiting. We can go that's the exciting part. We're sort of the inverted triangle when it comes to, the way this normally happens. You have an idea, you raise money, you move forward. We're fortunate and blessed enough to be able to get started once we have a good plan to move forward. Does that help?
It does, that very much helps. Let's see, my next question is for town staff. Can I ask that? Can you tell me how big Twin Lakes is? I know you all know that too.
Yeah.
Over acres.
I think it's 3.5 based on the Delta County
Okay,
website.
3.4,
Sorry. I just was looking at it.
3.4 acres. And then another question I have is, and that stops.
No, ask questions.
What would you do if you weren't able to get this land?
So, Joel, do you want to? So we've got some contingency plans. They're not ideal because it would require transport of people. So, you know, we have property, but after building the pavilion with the amount of parking that's required, we really need in the range of 3 to 4, 5 acres. So we would have to look for other locations that we could do that, but it kind of messes us up because I don't, you know, the Sonora Desert Museum, what is really cool about it is you go to the museum and you have one function and you walk out of admission and take your walk and go to the Arboretum or go here or go there or go to the 5 million places they have. So it's a very, very good question. And we have looked at other sites. We've looked at the conundrum is really the access to the orchards and the access to our nature preserve that's down by the river and how we work. We're trying to decrease as many barriers as we can for people, especially people in that are handicapped, I guess. It's a great question.
Keep going.
I
think you get your questions out there.
You had the last slide that was a map, and
Yes.
you said something that just piqued my interest. I'm like, I want to know more about what you were saying.
Yes.
That you said eventually all of these properties you think will be part of the foundation.
Yes.
Are they currently family properties or just?
Owned by Lauren and I.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that true? With the exception of Paonia, but yes, all of the other are.
I gotta put that in there, sorry about
Yeah,
that. That was
yeah,
a little optimistic on my part, but yes.
We're committed to the Van Vliets that are in the back row. We purchased my aunt's house,
Yeah, if you can just show us.
which
that
is
would be
here. It's a very historic house. I think it was one of the first brick homes in it's amazing in itself. And it's got another shop back here that will eventually probably convert a lot of these museums to save money, have their own shops. They build their own exhibits. So we're thinking that would be a good use here. And this would potentially be another offset if this is where the minerals happen to be. I don't know, but our goal is to tie this up into the foundation. And this parcel here has a lot of orchards. And we haven't, so that's our goal. Lorna and I are all in. Our kids hopefully won't be too mad at us, but we've already educated them. So.
And so it would be basically almost all of that white property that's in the middle there. Can you just?
This is not ours.
Oh, that's not yours.
No, all the green.
Greens.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Except you.
Yeah. Except that one. Yeah.
Oh, hang on one second. Go ahead.
I'm just, are you guys aware of what the utilities lie in that area at all?
No. We think probably what I've seen over time, the core of the utilities are here along the frontage, which doesn't bother us because this is all parking. And we're thinking that the structures will have to go as far back from the utility corridor as possible.
I'm just guessing that there would have to be some sort of pretty substantial utility easement.
You bet.
Can you elaborate?
Oh, yeah, so this is very preliminary, folks, and I just want you to know that even though we're discussing it tonight, we have a very prescriptive way of doing things, especially because this is currently zoned I-1. It is, which has a set of uses that are allowed by permitted right, one of them being a parking lot, but others that are allowed by special use review, and they all require that, there's a number of public hearings. It goes before the planning commission, receives a favorable recommendation to then go to the board of trustees. So there's a really prescriptive way about going about this. We would need utility easements because it's our main sewer line, it's our main collections line for all of town and Hidden Valley that runs through that property. There's a number of utilities, including Black Hills Energy, which is a main gas distribution fee for town. There's also a number of water mains that run through there as well. So that would be one really big thing. We're also talking about another property within a residential area being tied up into a foundation or a nonprofit, which takes another home off the market. And so these are all considerations that will have to end up going through public hearing. I did want to look it up to make sure that it was currently zoned I2, or I'm sorry, I1. It is zoned I1. Twin Lakes, I guess, was an addition added on August 8th, 1994, and then rezoned. As of right now, any sort of rezoning would have to go through a review that includes going through a comprehensive plan review. The comprehensive plan review that we have to go through is 1996, but we need to keep in mind that if the comprehensive plan passes with the new one, those provisions would then apply for your application. And in that, it gets a little more tricky because there's a lot of talk about future land use designations, and one of those future land use designations for this parcel is mixed use, and it has its own definition on what's mixed use, commercial, residential. So there's a whole lot of things that very preliminary that we'd still have to consider moving forward.
And I'd like to just clarify that all of that is in play, whether the town of Paonia still owns it.
Correct.
Or the Philibris's foundation owns it.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah, and again, the wonderful thing about owning property on all three sides with easements, we don't have any problem because we have access behind that corridor. So, we have thought about, sewer runs, well, it runs through our property anyway, so. But yeah, I think these are all very important considerations and, that need to be looked into.
Did the staff have any more questions or comments? Go ahead. And then I'll get
Mine
back to
was
you.
just kind of like, speaking of easements too, like worst case scenario, if they doesn't sell that property, if both sides would be open to maybe a walking easement, because it looks like that's the piece of property. Because there's across the street over the library, there's a sidewalk. If that's worst case scenario, we don't sell, we'd be open to a walking easement path.
Yeah.
To kind of help you out as well. I don't think anybody thinks it's a bad idea.
Yeah, I think, we're trying to, I think, do something dimensional here, and we're fortunate enough to hopefully present something that would appeal to the community. Obviously, if the community or the town doesn't want this, then hopefully we'll find a community that would. And then our farm would become, a foci. It would be on its own. But, when we were talking about Julia and Libby about, possible uses of our conserved property, she asked us, what do you think? Why go into this museum and why go in that direction? And then I think it's because we're, at least in our travels, that we're trying to cast a wide net. And when you cast a wide net, we want to bring children in. We want to engage the mining community. We want to really celebrate what Paonia is all about and what my grandmother fell in love with about this town. And hopefully we can do that in a coordinated effort.
Can I speak a little bit there?
Sure.
Just to kind of go on that, I think one of the things that gets me excited about that particular parcel, acknowledging that there are issues, very strong issues that need to be considered and dealt with. But what the opportunity is, in my mind, is the leverage that exists between that particular parcel and all of the other things that we want to do within the auspices of the foundation that the way that all integrates is a very exciting vision. And that's why even acknowledging that there could be some significant challenges to dealing with that particular parcel, it's worth pursuing, at least in an investigation phase, to see what we can do with that. Just thought I'd point that out.
I just have a question for Town Administrator Wynn. Like, how do we, whether we decide yes or no, like I get that it's a prescriptive process with public hearings and et cetera, but how do we even get to the point of saying, yes, we want to pursue this, or no, we don't? What does that look like? Just because I don't want to leave people in limbo. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like that feeling.
So I think you would have to look at it with the number of plans we have in place. So we do have a strategic plan that we put into place that we're starting to use with this fiscal year's budget. See if those goals and objectives align with what is being presented to us. And then you would also have to look at our comprehensive plan process. I mean, it's gone on for 2 years. We have to see how it would align or fit into what our our upcoming comprehensive plan says. I think that we'd also have to, when it comes down to, well, what would be the cost, of selling this property? How do you go about that process? I'm unfamiliar with how the state of Colorado disposes of public property, but I can tell you in previous experience, it requires a minimum of 2 commercial appraisals. You take the average of the 2. And so that was specific to the state of Indiana. I don't know how Colorado does it. But that's something when we get down to that point. To say that we have an application that has a checklist on what's required, I don't got anything like that. So we really have to kind of do this maybe in an ad hoc kind of manner. So it could be that there would be a committee established from this board of trustees that looks at the potential sale of real estate property and, make a recommendation based on that smaller committee to the board. And then, if it is, yes, we want to, the recommendation is to sell property, then that process would start, that very prescriptive codified process would start that shows this is what it would take to be able to do what's being proposed. And that is, again, dependent on public hearings where we would hear significant things about it.
I think one thing we realize is that that we're willing to pay more than appraised commercial value for this, because if the town is considering other uses for that the town's going to have to go and perhaps purchase property. And one thing we were considering is, well, could we purchase this parcel that would be more appealing to the town for its strategic plan? Or do we just give them enough money that they can go purchase another piece of land for their strategic plan? And so we understand that because of the value of location for us, we're willing to be very generous when it comes to purchasing the parcel, because we know that there's going to be give and take and there may be other uses, and the town may need that extra money to purchase the parcel that they want for their use, I guess.
Mary, and you might want to, if you don't mind coming up to the front, just so we can hear you on camera, et cetera. So, yeah, fine. Thank you.
Hi, guys.
How are you doing?
I'm glad you're going forward with this. I've always been excited about it. I have a maybe possible monkey wrench that will get thrown into this. According to Colorado Statute 31-15-713, power to sell public works with real property, you have to go to the voters.
We'll have our attorney.
Yeah.
Kay is here if you want to.
Yes, so because it's real property where there is no longer a public works facility on it, it's just a vacant piece of property. it can be by the majority vote of the Board of Trustees. So if it were an active public facility that was, or we were selling our public utility, that has to go to a ballot initiative, a referendum vote. We don't have to do that here. And you had something even more.
Well, part B of that statute,
Yes.
and Clay, please chime in.
Yes.
But what it essentially says is if the town does not have a stated purpose for that property already in place, then it can be done by ordinance.
Okay,
And that's the distinction. I thought the same thing you did, Mary, when I only read A and then looked at B. And then I know, Clay, do you want to chime in? Just if there's anything you have that doesn't comport with that?
Yeah, I think that's close. This is typically analyzed by circumstances and individual circumstances of a sale and ownership, etc. There is case law that states that if it's, has been considered as a public use but not actually used for a governmental purpose, that it doesn't kick you into that subsection A category. Then there's and that case law references a legal guidebook that talks about whether or not it once was and ceased to be used by the public. And it's not 100% clear, but I am comfortable with the analysis. And I've talked to some of my colleagues, and actually I talked to the attorneys who tried that case that I'm referencing. And they, while it's not 100% the same, it's not the same exact circumstances what we're looking at. They think that the court has decided more or less that, if something ceases to be used for that governmental purpose for a certain amount of time, and it wasn't otherwise devoted to or designated for that purpose when it was purchased, meaning there's some sort of limiting governmental use or other that's involved with the chain of title for that real property, then you can sell it and use it as you'd like. Now that means that you can sell it. It doesn't mean necessarily that you can just go sell it to the first person who asks for it. There's a process that you have to go through to make it, to determine if you're going to sell it for what costs, and whether that's going to be open to other potential buyers, etc. But legally, I do not think you have to put this, for those reasons. I don't think you're going to have to put this to a vote. I think that the Board of Trustees can do this by majority vote through an ordinance if they were to sell the property.
So
good. Glad to hear that.
And one of the other things that was brought up was a brownfield. It is not an active brownfield in the state of Colorado. The only active brownfield in Delta County is in Hotchkiss.
And we had a grant that did the brownfield assessment on that, and it should be good to build on.
It is, according to this. So.
And I could share, did I share that report with you, Lauren? I don't like I might have emailed it to you, did I?
Yes, we did have that report.
Okay.
Because we forwarded that on.
Yeah, there were some concerns when we had our people look at it. They feel that if the town is willing to consider, we would have to do a little bit more environmental evaluation. There were cores that weren't done that should have been done, and things like that. And then overlaid with that is that there are places where the toxic material is fairly close to the surface, we would have to avoid, and then we would need to overlay that with methods of construction, pile driving, ways of keeping it down and us going up, and things like that. So I think it's feasible.
I want to click, there shouldn't be any toxic anything there, because there's a clay liner that was removed when that wastewater facility was removed, and they brought in clean fill. So you shouldn't have to worry about any of that. It would be more.
It's going below.
What you're finding. Well, even then, the ponds don't go down 400 feet. It would be whatever's below that to keep, like, you'd probably have to do it on piles to keep like the ditch bank from eroding at the river. So I don't want anybody to think that there's any toxic materials in that spot. So,
I haven't read the report, I have to admit.
Yeah, we've got a white paper we can share with some of the concerns that were brought up from the evaluation of that report. But having said that, it'll be part of our due diligence to make sure we can put a commercial building there. The good news is that by Colorado statute, the levels of toxic materials that was found on one core was below what was allowable for commercial purposes. So that looked very, very positive. But we obviously need to make sure that we're going to need that we can do what we would like to do there, and look at the construction methods to make sure that things don't get disturbed.
Can I say a second? I'm gonna pass it back to you, but I want to make sure.
I didn't say anything.
Okay, Trustee Valentine, did you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, and I'm gonna ask everyone else too, but I have, and hang on one second, and then I'll have you. So are you considering at this point that you would provide an easement for where all the utilities are buried?
Absolutely, it has to be.
And then, but you're mostly looking at the frontage to be a parking lot with a building towards the.
I think
south.
I was gonna say, if there's a-
yeah, if we could go back, I believe this corridor we have to avoid. The access would be here, or the question is over an easement, can we have parking lot? Which can be ripped up, and if it's ripped up, how do you have access? Well, we have secondary access here. So building back here, away from what I know of utilities, but Corey will have to vent, I haven't looked at your maps.
Yeah.
But this would be the site, and then by ordinance, we need a fair amount of parking.
Can I
So
just add one thing? And this is just a passion of mine. What I would love to see to working with any easement. But this, as close as we can up here, I wanted to orient the building. And again, this is all pie in the sky, a little more curved this way, because this view over the river, that is spectacular. And that is something we wanted to build to make sure everyone can enjoy it. So that off the back of the building, however the building is oriented, obviously if there's parking up here, that this whole back of the building would be some sort of patio or whatever, but having an overlook to enjoy that spectacular view down the river. That's what we really wanted to preserve. So obviously, absolutely, I understand any kind of easements or whatever, but I would love it. That's my dream, is to see it overlooking and taking advantage of that amazing view of the river.
And you had your hand up, go right ahead.
Yeah, let me just stand up here. So I'm Libby Collins with Colorado West Land Trust, and we hold the easement on all of the yellow parcels there. And I just want to say the Berg family and this particular easement is such a gem for us, the Land Trust. Our goals, our mission are to preserve the cultural heritage of the area, the North Fork Valley, wildlife habitat, and to secure land for agriculture. So clearly the Bergs have already done that just with the easement that they put on in 2004, I think that was. So what plans that they're now working on, we would be working closely with them to make sure that the nature walk, potential arboretum, any public access through UPIC or education about or tours on the orchards, that they would fit within the conservation easement. Yeah, we just feel that the Land Trust has 27 easements, about 6,000 acres conserved along the North Fork area. I think Black Ridge was our most recent one in 2023. And it really speaks to what Paonia is all about. And we feel too that these easements really speak to what kind of Paonia is trying to accomplish in its master plan with preserving cultural heritage, local economy, and local agriculture. So I just wanted to say that we would definitely work with these folks to make sure that the easement would accommodate what they're proposing. And we've had some discussion, and certainly there's more detail, but yeah, we're definitely open to that.
Thank you. Trustee Check, did you have any questions?
No.
And trustee Hunter, I know you've recused yourself, but you certainly can ask questions.
I think trustee Swartz asked all the questions.
When I met with the both of you, I expressed, my thought was, I think your project is really admirable. However, Paonia is only 500 acres. That's how big our town is. And that 3.5 acres is our largest piece of contiguous in-town property. So I'm concerned that we need to think about long-term what the town would be giving up by selling you that property. We could potentially move our whole town hall there. We could have town hall in a park. We could have housing. So for me, I'm quite conflicted. And my other thought is right now, it is nothing to look at. I do not question that. It's a really, not very pretty place. But we really need to be aware of what that gateway, one of the main gateways into town would look like once it is developed. So I think for me, that's a very important thing to be considered too. I'm not against a parking lot, but it's going to have to be a really pretty one.
We will make sure, it will be the most beautiful parking lot.
But you see we 3.5 acres, and we own a small parcel behind the library.
For a bridge.
Yeah, for a bridge. And then we have parkland. And we don't really own any other parcels in town, correct?
We're working on some other projects to connect a trail network that goes to the school trail with that riverbank property. So with Libby.
Right, for behind the library.
Yes, on the other side of the river.
Right, on the other side, but those three, I think there's 3 small lots behind the library. I'm not sure they're even buildable.
I don't know
But they're really tiny.
Yeah.
It's like a
And,
15 an acre.
there are, the Stalls, old property, Dirk has it, there's 3 point, there's enough ag land along that corridor that, at one point we were approaching these people, but we didn't know well, how do we work this out? Because I don't know what the town really wants. And if we were to do any sort of land swap, but I will say that there are parcels that connect to town that could be potential purchases. If we were to do some sort of land swap. And then Janet brought up, well, gosh, it makes sense to me that the town should be driving their own bus. And if we give them enough funds that they can do that, they can find the right piece of property for their purposes. So, yeah.
So there's another way that real property could be sold. Eagle Vale has a proposal out right now for the sale of property, which is their old fire station. And so they have they have gone out, gotten to commercial appraisals and then set a minimum bid. And then have an entire, like we would normally do for an RFP, and let proposals come in to be evaluated. As long as they meet that minimum, purchase price. So that's another way that we could move forward, but I think the best way is to really establish an ad hoc committee to kind of discuss what to do with property sales.
Yeah. And we do have the water tap issue. Because you have water taps on your property, but
Yeah,
we don't even have a water tap.
Yeah, we would, that would be something we'd have to bring up with Steph, and we have a water tap that is in.
We have a standby
water tap that we would ask the town to transfer to that parcel.
I I would say, gotta go to the board.
Yeah. So I don't think for us that the water tap thing, I think we're confident enough that there will be water taps available at some point in time. We hope so, that it wouldn't, I don't think that is a showstopper for us. Yeah.
I had a process question, just kind of talking about this and
Would you
familiar with
come
that.
forward, please? I think, come forward all the way.
Yeah.
I think we're good with everybody in the front row, but I think it's getting a little not so clear back there. Thank you.
I'm just familiar with development and I know that I've seen developers who will buy land and then go through the process to try and get what they want done after. Or vice versa, they'll go through designing everything and then try and buy the land. And I just don't know if the town has a process that would require, we have to have, does there have to be a site plan that gets approved with the sale, or would the sale be beforehand and then follow? And I know we're talking about getting grant funding, and that requires its own environmental requirements anyway, so there have to be environmental studies done no matter what. So I just didn't know if the town had a requirement it has to be simultaneous, or if the land could be sold and then the development process could happen after, or, if it would be the desire of the town, because I know there's risk to either side on how that process works, so.
Yeah, we have no process. So that's why I'm suggesting go forward with, determining that process. Now, if it were an RFP process, if that's what came out of that committee, the board decides that they're going to go an RFP process, there would be certain criteria, right? There would be that minimum bid, but then also an evaluation based on what would be the plan, for that property. So in that case, if there was an RFP that went out, like evaluation criteria could include purchase price, purchase terms, which could be like sold as is. If it were the school, right? If it were the school, right. It would be contingent upon an inspection that finds no asbestos, something like that. And then the proposed use of the property. So those could be some evaluation criteria, but again, I don't want to, if you guys go forward with a committee, I don't want to say that that's going to be the process.
Right, sure. Okay, thanks.
And just so you know, we can't make any decisions.
Oh, yeah.
So
We understand that.
But this has all been just, really good information and food for thought for everybody.
But what we could, so if I was just thinking about, next steps, so as a trustee, I could bring forth a proposal to bring
On
the
another
staff
agenda.
at another agenda. Correct.
Or the staff could bring
Or
something
the staff
too,
could, totally.
but we just can't do it.
Yeah,
Sure.
definitely.
And, we're just grateful that you're hearing us, number one, and number two, we're very open, with anything. There are pluses and minuses. And if we can try to minimize the minuses and increase the gains, that's where we're at. So, as these issues come forward, we're very appreciative to allow us to help problem solve those, and what can we do? And
I think that's my big point, is just however you choose to go forward, whatever we can do to help, whatever information you might need or whatever, just be sure and reach out, let us know.
Probably be through a public, there might have to be it might be on several agendas as things start getting fleshed out.
And it's important to us too, Mayor Page, that the community wants this thing. I mean, this is a huge, sacrifice for our family, and I do not want to spend a lot of money on something that is not appreciated. I mean, that doesn't, as I used to tell the residents, if you want to come here, then it's good for us and it's good for you. But if you say that you want to come here and you don't want to come here, it's a disaster, so we just need to make sure that, hey, we've got this plan, you know, what can we do to help facilitate your plan and hopefully make things work, because of our geographic, you know, location and, as Joel had put it, I am all about trying to build something that this town will be very proud of. That is my number one in this.
It's 6:15, so we
Okay.
have a few more minutes, but if anyone else have anything else they want to add? It's wide open. Anybody on Zoom that didn't get a chance to ask a question?
I did get a chance, but I'll jump in anyway, if that's okay. I
That's
just want to
fine.
know, is there anything concrete that this body could tell us to go and do, or more information to bring forth that we can go off and work on for you? Is there any ask that you could make that we could fulfill for you at this time?
So
Anything?
I don't think you can actually direct them, but there are things that other communities have done, like an impact study. So seeing what that impact of something like a parking lot, a museum, would do for revenue for the town. You know, would it decrease it, putting everything in a foundation, would that decrease it? Would the new demand for sewer and water for a museum that operates, or whatever else, you know, is planned, what would that look like for the town? So we don't have any sort of impact fees contemplated in our code, but those are some of the things that other communities contemplate with development of sites over an acre. So that's something to consider as well.
And I think that's something we can do, right, Stefan? I mean, or is that something that has to come from your end? I don't know.
Typically communities don't do it for like private organizations. Like we would do an impact study if we were going to put in a municipal complex. What would that look like?
Gotcha.
For the volume of sanitary sewer going through our pipes in that area? Can our existing water mains handle it, you know, for an increased demand in water? But not for a private.
Okay, so maybe we could work with you, provide information, size, you know. I don't think we want to have the town incur costs. You know, that's important to us. I don't know if.
That's important to me.
Yeah, okay.
Let's say that, right?
Yeah, you know, but whatever we can do, you know, to alleviate. It makes total sense that an impact statement would be done, and what kind of volume we're thinking we could bring in and to the community, so.
And we always think about the tax base.
There are creative ways,
Too.
and I was sworn not to say anything, but there are creative ways that foundations can pay taxes. Okay, so. We do not want to be a financial strain on this community. And that is not in our cards.
That's great, but that's of course one of the considerations too. So. Yes, please.
Just in case y'all need somebody to say it, might be nice for you guys to give yourself like 10 minutes to stretch and move.
And I have some snacks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming in.